Welcome to the wild world of the diagnostic laboratory industry, where we focus on science, compliance, sales marketing, and self-mastery. Welcome to Lab Results with Blake. I'm your host, Blake Bork. So I don't admit this often, but I would say at least for the first 5 years of my lab career, I cost my companies millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of samples by not doing lab training correctly. I was not born with this master blueprint of how to do training and how to educate and entertain and enlighten and connect with the staff. It took reps, man. It took mistake after mistake after mistake. It took me really, failing forward, constantly getting up, trying to figure out how I can do it better. It took some people to come into my life and really hold a mirror up to show me how I was actually doing it and how I could do it better. And I think it's very important. I had coaches who coached me in other areas of my life that made me connect dots on how I could be better at diagnostic laboratory training. I looked at how I reconnected with my body and how I was able to gain power again and get back in shape. So that way I could be a strong father and I could be powerful inside of my marriage and feel like I had a foundation under my feet again. I mean, honestly, I kind of brought my sexy back. And by doing that, I was able to have more confidence in front of doctors, providers, their staff, administrators, people who make decisions. You have that confidence, you have clarity, you have courage. You can go ahead now connect, right? That and open yourself up and tell the truth. Super important. I had coaches who enlightened me to my faith and exposed me to the fact that my faith wasn't as strong as maybe I thought it was, and that I needed to double down and read the Bible every day like it was true. That morality compass, that shift in my personality, that waking up with goodness in my heart completely changed the way that I train. It did. And the way that I connect with people and the way that I don't overload them, because I understand that they need to have their own revelations. Laboratory training it's very complicated. And obviously we have the compliance issues. We have the patient care issues. We have the collection issues. We have all the regulations with CLIA, COLA, CAP, CMS, and now the FDA, right? All have input on how we do our jobs. And there's no real consolidated training. Well, we have some, but there's no real consolidated place to go and get lab training. To be able to have like somebody put a flashlight up and say, all right, guys, you could be doing this better. You're about to make a $10,000 mistake a month. I've already done that. Don't do it. Talk to this person because they solve your problem. You're not unique. You're not unique. Your problem's not unique. Your pain's not unique. If you're in the lab space, other people have come before you and they've made one of the biggest issues I had is I was coming from finance and oil and gas and kind of software all mixed into one bag. And I came in and thought that I was the first smart person to ever come into lab. And I tried to do everything like it was brand new. I tried to reinvent the wheel. Brothers and sisters, the wheel has been around in lab for a long time. Dr. Koch did culture and sensitivity 100 years ago, right? I mean, we are rapidly advancing with technology and innovation right now in this space. How we bring this information to our doctor's offices, how we actually train our doctor's offices, what we do when we're training them to collect a sample on that day. Key phrase here, that day, is different than what we do whenever we actually train them on the report and do a report training day. I highly recommend that you separate those 2 days. Why? Because one is focused on specimen collection, proper medical necessity, documentation, filling out the order. The other one can be done whenever they need to get the report. And what's good about it is if you're proud of your turnaround time and your laboratory is on the same page with some white glove, first time service, making sure everything goes great, the setup is ideal. Because now you go focus on ordering and tell them, hey, let's do 5. Let's do 5. If we're going to do a Pepsi challenge, if you're going to put me up against your other laboratories, let's do 5. Let's do 10 samples. In fact, let's do 5 or 10 samples that you know is going to pay. Why collect a sample when you're not going to get paid? This is your opportunity to be able to tell them these are the samples that we would prefer not to collect. Don't think for 1 minute that that doctor's office is going to accept a patient that cannot pay the copay. I want you to think about the paradigm shift right now. You can't get back behind the front desk without actually paying a copay, guys. They ask you for your copay up front. They ask you for your insurance up front. They ask you when you set the appointment, what insurance do you have? They're doing prior authorizations before your butt even gets into the front waiting room, much less the second waiting room waiting on the doctor. So grow up in this one and allow yourself to be able to decide what insurances you will take and what you won't take. Sales reps have more control over this part of the process than anyone realizes. It's okay to say no, guys. Doctors don't want you to lose money. The doctors who are like, well, I want you to take all my patients. Cool. I want you to take every patient on the street. No, they won't do that. And if you push back a little bit with some humility, like with some human characteristic of like, why would you want me to lose money? Why would you want a laboratory to lose money? Come on, man. Work on being able to make your laboratory money every single time they run a sample. It's possible. I've seen it. It may be a unicorn to some of you, but I've seen it. But I promise you this, if your laboratory CEO, if your chief operations officer, if your executive team does not believe it, there's nothing the revenue cycle management is going to be able to do because they will not instill the processes in the laboratory necessary to give the feedback to sales to make sure that sales isn't running the wrong samples or that practice didn't send the wrong samples. If you don't have a feedback loop, none of the stuff that I'm talking about is possible. So we do order entry day. We do the Pepsi challenge day. We get 5 to 10 samples and then samples happen. Magic happens at the laboratory. Nothing gets lost. Reports get generated. Now we go and train on portal. Now we go train on pulling out reports, making sure that the fax numbers are right, making sure we got email addresses white labeled, making sure that we've got our whole QR code specific training plan ready for that particular laboratory. And guys, I'm recording this right now on Zoom. I'm recording this on Zoom with an $80 camera from Best Buy, with an $80 microphone from Best Buy. No investment necessary. Blurred out backdrop. It is completely possible for you to put together laboratory training. It's the cheapest it's ever been to be able to educate your people, to entertain your people, to engage with your people. So that way they see your face telling them what to do and it's a customized solution. You see how much more that matters? You can embed yourself in their HR process. You can literally become the diagnostic laboratory training liaison for their practice. You could know everybody's name in the practice. You could know their kids' names in the practice. You could be getting referrals from that practice. You could build a fence around that practice. The gatekeeper won't let a soul behind the gate because you're their guy. Take that gatekeeper with you. Separate your training and then camp out. Camp out there. Answer their questions. Blend into the wall. Don't stand out. Don't tell dumb jokes. Don't make uncomfortable comments. Don't have nervous conversation. Just be there. Be there as a clinical support. Answer their questions. Ask engaging questions, all directed at patient care. All directed. Think of yourself as a third-year resident about to operate on these patients or literally somebody who's got to be the psychiatrist, the therapist, the plumber. You're willing to take out the trash, not for free. They got to pay you fair market value. But you're literally there to make sure that you're there everything. Separate the training gives you 2 opportunities to be able to connect with other people too. Video your training. Holy moly, we're there 24 hours a day. We're there 24 hours a day now, guys. Could you imagine a situation where you have on-demand training inside of the doctor's office, brought by you to them? Conservative healthcare in today's world, if they don't know what to do, they will opt to do nothing. If they don't know what to do, they will opt to do nothing. That's conservative care. And so when a new employee starts at a doctor's office or someone gets promoted or somebody gets pregnant and they go on maternity leave or they lose their job or they get sick, They go on vacation. If they don't know what to do with your lab process, they will stop sending samples. And if you don't have this feedback loop like we talk about, no one's going to know about it. If your executive team, if your CEO and your COO, if they don't care about getting this information to sales, sales will never know that that clinic actually stopped sending samples. But they will be blamed. They will be blamed if you don't have a positive sales culture. So, sales leaders out there, separate your training out, video your training, make your training available online and offline. Then train your people. Now it's your job to train the medical staff on who to call, who to talk to, who to email, what's the appropriate questions, how they're doing a manifest. Your job is to train, and that doesn't happen one time. I want you to think about if you played high school sports, if you played college sports, you tell me one time you practiced once a week and had a good outcome. Doesn't happen. You just show up and practice once a week, you're probably not going to be very good on Saturday or Sunday. It took time. It took rep after rep after rep. You had to practice at home. You had to practice at school, at high school. You lifted weights. You prepared during the off season. You prepared during the season. How do you think you're going to do this barely any times and then go into that professional setting and all of a sudden everybody's going to know what to do immediately? It does not happen. If they've never done your process before, 12, 14, 16 times before they're competent. And then if they don't do it for a week, they're going to forget it. Ask any experienced salesperson, why are they good at what they do? They're going to tell you their relationships. And I'm going to tell you behind the relationships is the frequency and the contact that they've had to reinforce their message. They're likable, and so they were able to stay in the clinics long enough to reinforce their message to train people. That's how they built a relationship. They were an expert, and they cared. Focus on the care, and that care will carry you through. You guys be great. You've been listening to Lab Results with Blake, with your host, Blake Bork. Please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Remember, greatness is contagious.